It's interesting to hear that the king is cutting off Prince Andrew, because I had always understood that the king did appreciate and realize that he was going to have to look after his brother. And the only reason I can really think is that perhaps Prince Andrew has in fact been left enough money by his mother to be independent, and the king would not wish, I think, money to be coming from anything that could be perceived to be a sort of public source. And I mean, there's always been this question about finance and the royal family and things. And since Prince Andrew isn't actually doing any royal duties, he would wish to make a very strong distinction, I suspect, between what he received privately and what he received in connection with his position as a Prince of the United Kingdom. So I think perhaps, I think we have to take it seriously, because Robert Hardman is well connected and he doesn't say things that he doesn't believe to be true. But it may actually just be a sort of subtle arrangement, and that in fact Prince Andrew's got plenty of money to keep going. On the other hand, we do also know that the king wishes him to move out of Royal Lodge. And in the particular article that I read that you sent me, it mentioned that he has to look after a number of items from the royal collection, that although he has a very good lease on Royal Lodge, and I know that's true, he also has to look after it, and it could be very expensive. And maybe the king is just trying to sort of push this situation so that he does actually move out. It would be better, of course, if Prince Andrew decided to move out of his own accord. But again, I understand that one of the reasons why he doesn't want to do that is because, whatever you think, he has never been convicted of anything at all. And obviously been lots of innuendo and lots of suggestions, and in the stupid interview and so forth. But that if he moves out of Royal Lodge, it looks as though he's sort of, somehow confessing to being guilty, which he doesn't want to do, which I quite understand. But I've always thought it would be much more sensible if he lived more modestly. And I must say, hoped that perhaps if the Queen had lived, she might have discussed with him possibility of either him or her buying him a house wherever it was that he wanted to, so that he's safe and he doesn't get involved with having to depend on other people. Obviously, I have no idea what he's going to do, but if you look at it from his point of view, he's been pushed out of everything else. He doesn't undertake any royal duties. He doesn't do anything with regiments or charities or take part in public life in any way at all. And he's living in that house, and he's been there for a very long time now. I would imagine, thinking it from his point of view, what else are they going to do to me? Chuck me out of the house that I'm happy to live in, and spending a lot of time there after all, because he's got nothing else to do. All he does is to ride in the park and play golf, and he is in that house. And as I say, he isn't convicted of anything. There are a lot of unpleasant things said about him, and he gave that very foolish interview and so forth. But assuming that I don't personally think he's guilty of the things that he's being accused of. He may be shouldn't have certain things that he shouldn't have done, but I don't think the particular things that he's been accused of that the general public are convinced that he is guilty of, I'm not so sure that he is. So if you put him in that position, I can see that he might be very reluctant to leave his house. I don't suppose he'll create a big scene or anything, but would be good all round if he voluntarily decided to leave and found somewhere that he was happy. And if he was prepared to go to Frogmore Cottage, that would of course be very suitable, because it's actually not particularly small, and it's right within the sort of ring of royal security, so that he could be secured at no extra cost to anybody. And he'd still have access to being able to ride around the home park and all the estates of Windsor and things, which is obviously what he likes doing. So that would be a very sensible solution to the matter. We've seen quite a lot of evidence of the king, including Prince Andrew, in things like Christmas services and Easter service, and even at the Garter ceremony, he was able to attend the private investiture and lunch and things in the castle. He just wasn't allowed to take part in the public procession. So in other words, I think the king is actually being, very inclusive of him in family situations. It's just that his nobody wants him in public life for the reasons that we've stated, and therefore I don't think there's a sort of no, I don't see anything sort of vindictive. And I think also, I think the king and his advisors would be very unwise to be seen to being vindictive in a sense, kicking somebody when they're down, if to put it as simply as that. And so I don't think that that's the situation. I think that he would hope to find some sort of reasonable situation where his brother can you know um spend the rest of his life doing whatever he's going to do privately. I mean, he's reached an age where he could sort of retire, from things. I mean, he was born in 1960, so he's 64. So, he doesn't have to do too much, I guess. But I think it's very difficult because actually Prince Andrew was rather good at quite a lot of the things that he did publicly, and I'm sure he feels very frustrated by not being able to do them anymore. But it's not going to happen because people don't want him. I mean, you wouldn't want him coming to a charity event because he wouldn't be a draw. People wouldn't want to come and take part. So it's a very difficult situation. I don't think the king's being vindictive, though. What he might well be doing, though, is to try to divide what might be seen as sort of money being spent on things like security and, in a sense, the sort of money that comes to the royal family from various sources for the public duties that they do. And since he doesn't do any public duties, a bit like Prince Harry, he's not really entitled to anything from that source. I think that's difficult. I mean, have thought for some time that there may well come a point when Prince Harry, possibly even alone, comes back to this country. But again, I think that that's going to be tricky because if he's undertaking sort of royal duties or semi-royal duties and things, that's going to deflect from what the king and the key members of the royal family are doing. And it's always been this difficult situation that that the king and his working royals are actually working for the United Kingdom and the Commonwealth and not for themselves. And Prince Harry, of course, has taken a different path where he is rather working for himself, and that's not going to fit in very well. So I'm sure on a personal level, the king would wish to. I mean, as I've said many times before, he's kept the door open for Prince Harry, and he's never responded to any of the sort of jibes which have been made against him. He's actually behaved with incredible reserve, and that's very much to the good. People keep asking me, is there any chance that there will be a reconciliation? And the answer is, of course, there's every chance if people are prepared to compromise on both sides. And there have been many examples in history where people have been able to reconcile. So by the king saying nothing, he keeps his side absolutely open, as it were, which is good. But I think also the king's got a lot of other things on his mind to be concerned with. And so Prince Harry and the Home Office and all that stuff is the last thing he needs to have to be dealing with. I think that I remember the wedding, as I'm sure you do, very, very clearly, and the enormous amount of popularity that couple had on that particular day. And I know that they assigned all sorts of people to help Meghan at the beginning, and I think it absolutely fits that she is the one who rejected this help. And it's a little bit like what Diana did. Lots of people tried to help Diana and she rejected them. And then later on she said, oh, they never helped me. Well, they did try and help her, actually. And same with Meghan. They wouldn't have, what possible advantage could they have of throwing her to the wolves? None whatsoever. And so I'm afraid as time has gone on, I think the evidence speaks for itself that she is the tricky one, not them.